Welcome to Murder Tale Shorts, thrilling, chilling, true crime at its bloody best. I'm H.N. Lloyd. On Sunday the 23rd of November 1975, Mrs. Mildred Atkinson was making her way to the local corner shop to buy the Sunday papers. Her journey took her past a derelict garage on Berwick Road. Looking into the garage, Mrs. Atkinson could see a body lying face down on the floor. The body had been subject to a savage volley of kicks, blows and stamps. A horseshoe-shaped wound on the back of the head led police to believe that the victim had been attacked with a stiletto shoe. The victim had been sexually assaulted and had been penetrated both vaginally and anally. From semen left in the body, forensic scientists were able to deduce that the killer was a secretor, someone who leaves traces of blood in saliva and semen. They were also able to deduce that the killer was one of only 6% of the population who secreted blood group B. From a vicious bite wound left in the victim's left breast, the police were able to deduce that the killer had a prominent gap in their front teeth. After the attack, the killer had removed the victim's coat and used it to cover the body. He had then neatly laid the victim's boots over her thighs. The victim was quickly identified as 26-year-old Joan Harrison, a local woman who struggled with addiction problems and who worked as a cleaner in the local St Mary's hostel in the town of Preston. Joan's boyfriend David Keeley had a cast-iron alibi. Over 6,000 local men gave blood samples and thousands of witness statements were collected. At the time of Joan's murder, it was the height of the Yorkshire Ripper scare. A connection between Joan's killing and the Yorkshire Ripper crimes was looked at by the police. However, it was deemed that Joan was killed too far outside the Yorkshire Ripper's usual killing grounds. In March 1978, Detective Chief Superintendent George Oldfield, the head of the Yorkshire Ripper inquiry, received a mocking letter. In it, the letter writer wrote in part, "Up to 8 now, you say 7, but remember Preston, 75. The Yorkshire Ripper inquiry re-examined Joan Harrison's murder and discovered that the similarities between Joan's killing and the Ripper killings were startling. The Ripper had a habit of ritualistically laying the victim's clothes and boots over the victim's bodies, just like had happened to Joan Harrison. The Yorkshire Ripper had bitten some of his victims, and from this, the police could tell that the killer had a very prominent gap in his front teeth, just like Joan's killer. Finally, the person who had sent the hoax letter and had licked the envelope that the letters and tapes had been sent in had been a B secretor, just like Joan's killer. Joan Harrison was now considered a canonical victim of the Yorkshire Ripper. In 1981, Peter Sutcliffe was arrested for the Yorkshire Ripper crimes. He admitted to every one of the 13 murders he had committed, including a murder that the police had yet to connect to the Yorkshire Ripper. However, Peter Sutcliffe denied having murdered Joan Harrison. For years, the prevailing belief was that the man who had sent the hoax letters to the police, the so-called Wearside Ripper, must have murdered Joan Harrison. In 2005, a lifelong alcoholic by the name of John Humble was finally arrested for the Wearside Ripper crimes. His DNA proved beyond doubt that he was the letter writer. However, his DNA also proved beyond any reasonable doubt that he had not murdered Joan Harrison. When the murder of Joan Harrison was finally solved, it wasn't because of a complicated police inquiry or a brilliant bit of detective work. It was because of a routine stop of a drink driver. On Wednesday the 23rd of January 2008, 60-year-old Christopher Smith was arrested for drink driving and a sample of his DNA was routinely taken. 6 nights later, Christopher Smith killed himself, leaving a suicide note that read, "To whoever it concerns, I would like to put the record straight. I can't go on with the guilt. I have lived with it for over 20 years. I am truly sorry for all the pain I have caused to anyone. Please believe me when I say I am sorry. I love my grandkids and my daughter. I cannot go back to prison anymore. Please God help my family who I worship. I have been out of trouble for over 20 years. So please God help me. I am so sorry. God forgive me. I love you all forever. When Christopher Smith's DNA was run into the police national computer, it immediately flagged up as being linked to the murder of Joan Harrison. It proved beyond any reasonable doubt that he was Joan's murderer. In 1975, Christopher Smith had been a resident of St Mary's Hostel, where Joan Harrison had been a cleaner. He therefore would have undoubtedly known her. After murdering Joan Harrison, Christopher Smith went on to serve prison terms for attempting to rape a 17-year-old girl and pushing his 7-month pregnant wife through a plate glass window. If you'd like to know more about the murder of Joan Harrison, then you should read Murder Tells They Got Away with Murder. If you'd like to know more about the Yorkshire Ripper inquiry, then you should read Murder Tells the Yorkshire Ripper. And don't forget to subscribe to the Murder Tales podcast. Until next time, don't have nightmares.